A new challenger has entered the arena in the women's discus. Will we see a new American record in the hammer throw? And what happened at Ryan Krauser's inaugural World Shot Put Series? Stay tuned for this week's Throw Show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Throws Show. Whoa. It's the Throws Show. I am, of course, your host, Jason, joined, as always, by the People's Champ. He is the head throws coach of youth development, Mr. Team Fire Me Up himself, Coach Sam Weeks.
Yes, sir.
Sam, we're well into the outdoor season. It's the end of April. This will get released in May. We're sort of in the dog days of the high school track season, as I like to say. And we're several months out from the U.S. National Championship and even further out from the World Championships in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. But man, the world of throwing does not stop, and people keep throwing far.
That's facts.
So people are throwing so far, in fact, that a new challenger has entered the arena of the women's discus. Garage Strength and Throws University's own Gabby Jacobs. Mm-hmm. Sam, this is probably one of the coolest throws I've seen probably ever from a Garage Strength athlete because, you know, to be blunt, I don't think anyone expected it.
No.
Gabby Jacobs, who has been training with Garage Strength, training with Dane for over a year now, set a new personal best actually in Ramona just by a couple centimeters in the high 63s, but then goes out to the University of Kansas, goes to the Rock Chalk Invite, adds nearly 5 meters to her personal best.
Yeah.
What did you think when you saw this, and what does this mean for Gabby in her career?
Yeah, so we're all in a group chat, and Dane just randomly texts the group, yo, Gabby just went 68-21, and my jaw, dropped. I was just like, what? And I was panicking, not panicking, but, I wanted to see the video, because I was like, I know, it's crazy. I knew it was going to be crazy, and then in that same group message, they were she opened up at 67. So, yeah. She was on fire for that competition. And then once I saw the video, I knew, you could see the pop off, you could see the energy, and it's that's insane. She's number 6 all time in the U.S. currently, all of history. That is crazy.
Yeah, to add that much of a improvement on your personal best, at the point where she's at in her career, it's funny to me because this is a conversation that I've had with Mattis this past week. With Mattis recently going over 71, but he's been just backing up his throws with all of these huge marks surrounding Ramona. Mm-hmm. When you throw the discus, and as a discus thrower yourself, you're seeing the best throws and you're in the best shape of your life. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the development time to become an elite discus thrower? Because it seems to historically show that it's years after college when you really start seeing the big numbers come out.
Yeah, no, I definitely think the tides are shifting a little bit, and we are seeing younger athletes throw further. But for athletes to compete at a very, very high level, the world class level, the elite level, usually it's in their later within their career. Now, there's definitely outliers like an Alekna who's still super young and is probably the best discus thrower, but usually
Che is super young as well.
Che too. But usually it's it's fine wine. The older you are, the better.
Yeah, I mean, if you look historically at guys that are hitting their peaks and personal bests, it's usually in their early mid 30s. Yeah, almost very historically with a lot of the top throwers. And to give all credit to Gabby, throwing 68. At the current time for U.S. women's discus, mm-hmm. where a mark like this could medal at a world championships. Yes. We know this historically. This is a medaling type mark, but also the depth of the women's discus at USA's. This really shakes up the predictions of what people thought was going to happen at nationals. What do you think this mean? Like, I guess one thing I kind of want you to break down, because I want to spend a little more time on this, is what do you think she does really well that led to a huge improvement in this? Because this is another thing to add. This didn't happen in Ramona. Like, this happened outside of Ramona at a college meet, University of Kansas. It's a great facility. And what does this mean for her career as a post-collegiate discus thrower?
I mean, this toss is going to open up, a lot of doors. She'll be able to compete in bigger competitions, get, points for the world rankings, and, potentially, compete at higher, competitions. I'm not 100% sure, like, what opportunities will come, like if she could go overseas or something, but it's definitely going to open up more doors. Now, if we're talking about technique, I feel like Gabby has had the potential to throw this far for a very long time. It just never really clicked.
Yeah.
When she competed at Ramona, the first day, they competed in no win.
Yeah.
And she PR'd. And it was like, just imagine like if she lines it up with some wind.
Yeah.
And then that Saturday, unfortunately, it just didn't really pan out the way that we all kind of thought. But the technique was there. Like, she just couldn't hit the release.
Right.
So, like, her technique was there. And, like, I saw it when we were training. Like, dude, like, she was smacking tosses. And it's just, like, one of those things where it's, like, you just keep doing the little things. Like, you keep focusing on the technique. And, like, you just get prepared for that one competition because all it takes is one. And evidently, she did it here.
I think one thing I'll just add for like younger throwers, if they're watching, like how do they improve their, like how does an athlete do this, improve so much? When you see how, when he's talking about her lining things up, the speed in which she attacks the entry, like that's the thing with Gabby. She's a super aggressive thrower. She's an incredibly twitchy thrower, like very, very explosive. She's actually kind of similar to CC in that regard. And when you see her, like she catches the disc deep, she lands grounded, and she follows through with the whole throw, like super long. Yes, it releases maybe slightly early, but that's also just kind of how discuses kind of releases a bit like down the right sector. I think that's the thing that's like that people need to take away is like the aggressiveness, but also just like the patience that she had to really attack the disc at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Controlled out the back, fast to the front, smash forward.
That's how you get big throws, everybody. Sometimes it's not as complicated as we like to make it seem. But it can also be just as complicated as we like to make it seem. But to follow that up, we're going to stay with the women's discus. Val Alman, of course, she's just the front runner. She's like the current goat of women's discus. Like, she's very hard to beat, and she proved that again in the first Diamond League of the season in Xiamen, China, throwing 68.95. One thing I'm a little upset by is it's hard to get footage of these videos now. They're no longer on Peacock, but this is at least Val's throw, just short of 70 meters in China, in stadium, dead wind. We always talk about, when we talk about Val, we always say it's just Val doing Val things. And this is Val just continuing to do Val things.
Yeah. I think, like, are we really surprised? But I feel like this competition was like pretty good, like as a whole. I think Val was the front runner going into this, and she held it down. She won, but it's just one of those things where it's like, dude, like she's that dominant. Like she's gonna go in and throw just as far as what some people would probably think she would do at Ramona. Like,
yeah.
She backed it up. Like, yeah, it's not a 73 meter toss, but it's like, dude, like 68's really not that far in a stadium. Like, everyone wants to be like, oh, like, let's see what she does in a stadium, or like any other athlete who competes at Ramona, like, oh, let's see what they do with no wind. And it's like, dude, like, she's still throwing far. Like,
yeah, this
is early in the season. Like, I'd say give it like 2 more months. That could be 70.
Oh, well, that's the thing is, Val has thrown 71 in stadium.
Yeah.
So it's just like, Val gets her throw in at the big Ramona invite, and then, continue. Like, that's the thing is we always reiterate this for this specific season of throwing on the throw show. World Championships are in the middle of September.
Yeah.
Like, you have to pace yourself. And at the same time, it's like, if you're Val, do you want to consistently be throwing 71 plus right now in April and May?
No, there's no need.
and that's the other thing to reiterate here is, like, when we're talking about these professional throwers, their goals are going to be very different than a lot of high school, college throwers. Like, a lot of high school, college throwers, you're in that developmental phase where you're like, I want to hit a personal best every time I go and throw, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the professional leagues, their focus is making money.
Yeah.
And when it comes to making money, it's, can you produce this certain level of distance every single time you go out and compete? And can you beat people and win?
Yeah. How long can you be consistent?
How long can you be consistent? How long can you win? Because that's how you make the most money. And that's like the constant battle that we talk with all of our professional throwing friends, is like the balance between, should I stay home and train to try to hit a bigger throw at a very specific meet, or do I compete more often, make more prize money, and just get more consistent in a competition format?
Yeah.
And there's two very different ways to go about it. But when you're at Val's level, it's like, make the money. Like, you're good enough to compete and beat all these women at all these, diamond leagues. Go out and make their money.
Yeah.
And to follow up, we're going to stay on this meet because another garage strength throws university athlete, Yaime Perez, actually had a very solid showing out in China as well, getting second place, throwing 66.26, very similar to what she threw in Ramona.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really speak to Yaime following Ramona, but it was pretty evident that she wasn't like super thrilled with her performance. But at the same time, like, she's coming off of doing 8 weeks of television for, Exatlon, several months ago, didn't really train, opens up in Ramona, throws 66, and then follows it up at a Diamond League to get second place and throw 66 again in dead air. So it's like, again, all you people want to talk crap on Ramona, it's like she basically threw the same distance as she did in Ramona in the same conditions that Val was in. And this is just kind of proving, like, one, Yaime is a competitor, but two, it's like, be on the lookout because she is ready to compete at all these major Diamond Leagues, and it's not just going to be a walkthrough for these women.
Yeah, no, I think this performance by Yaime is like actually pretty huge because, like you said, like she was gone for roughly like 2 to 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Like she did not train.
No,
she was doing her show, which was like Survivor. It's a really cool thing, but she had no time to actually train and get better in her sport. So, like you said, she opened up at Ramona and she threw okay. Like, it wasn't terrible. Like, I think we all kind of had a bigger expectations for her, but like, for not training for a very long time and still being able to throw far, like, that was huge. And then for her to double down and throw just as far in stadium after traveling to China, like that's incredible.
Right.
Like that, like, just shows like how good her base is. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, dude, once she gets like into real good shape, dude, she's going to be throwing bombs.
This is the performance of an athlete who's incredibly experienced at a high level.
100%.
Like, this is something that you see out of a veteran. And that's the thing with Yaime. It's like, as much, and that's not meant to throw shade on calling her a veteran. She's been competing at a high level, since she was like 20 years old, like at the professional level. So to understand that, it's like what you were saying, she has that base to build off of, that she can just know what she can throw at almost any major meet that she needs to throw well in. And what's exciting to see is like, obviously we always like allude like, oh, it'd be nice if she threw at the World Championships. As of right now, that's probably not likely, but maybe still possible. Unlikely, but very potential possible. So when you think about it in that regard, it's like, as long as the season grows, like, Yaime could still throw super far the rest of the year. And that's kind of the exciting thing, is like, whether she goes back to Ramona for a meet, that's going to be dependent on what she wants to do. But I think even if she just goes to these Diamond Leagues and keeps throwing, like, she's still going to hit some really, really big throws.
Yeah.
And to just kind of go over this real briefly, unfortunately, we couldn't find any footage of the Xiamen Diamond League in regards to the women's shot put. But the women's shot put, at least 1 and 2, really popped off as Jessica Schilder backed up her huge indoor mark with a massive opener outdoors, throwing 20.47. And then Chase Jackson also backs up her solid indoor campaign with multiple throws over 20 meters, breaking the indoor American record. 2031. These are really big marks for this time of the year. And again, it's just kind of gets us excited for like, what are they going to do as they get closer to Tokyo?
Yeah, no, I definitely like to see like, okay, like, our top women are carrying what they did from the indoor season into the outdoor. It's not like they're taking any steps back. It's like, no, like pedal to the metal, like we're continuing to push. And I really like to see that as they start to transition into outdoors.
Right. And we're actually going to head back to Ramona briefly because our boy Nick Percy, if you watched our whole Ramona recap from 2 weeks ago, Sam and I had nothing but glowing things to say about Nick Percy as a person. Well, Nick Percy threw just short of his personal best in those competitions. He stayed in Ramona for another week, walked away, new personal best, new Scottish national record. From what he wrote down, he's now second all-time in Great Britain behind Lawrence Okoye's 70-meter throw from Ramona earlier this year. So 67.86, that is over the standard for world championships for Nick Percy. I know this means a lot to him, and it was funny that as soon as I walked up to him when we talked for the first time, I was saying, he's like, "Oh, you're looking good, man." He's like, "I look fat," and he was like joking about his physique, but dude, like he was backing up clearly. Like we were talking about, you do this a long time, you build that base. His base is good enough to walk away with a new national record. What do you think? What do you see on Nick Percy's throw?
Yeah, dude, I've always liked Nick's toss. Yeah. I feel like having the experience of being in Ramona for, an extended period of time definitely put him in a position where he can, establish this new record and, qualify for the world championship. So I feel like, it didn't really click the first time around, but it's like, okay, he stayed out there, he got good quality reps, he got good quality training out there, and then just, put it together during this competition.
Yeah, very excited for Nick. Excited to see what he does in Tokyo and honestly see what he does for the rest of the season. Great dude. If you're looking for a technical model, can't really find too much better than Nick Percy. He moves really well.
Yeah.
And to actually continue with the Ramona discussion, we have a new national record from Maseko Yugami out of Japan, 64.48. We couldn't find video of his throw, but Sam actually competed against him in the Thursday comp prior to the massive bronze level Ramona competition that we discussed 2 weeks ago. 64.48, that's a pretty solid throw. And I was even telling Sam here before we started, like a mark like that, ideally he'd like to throw farther, as the season progresses. But I feel like a mark like this might be good enough that with him being the host nation for Japan, that they might actually let him compete even just without hitting the world standard or having world ranking, because it's a good enough mark that he would be competitive in the qualifying.
Yeah. And, it was kind of the same thing like with Nick Percy. He ended up staying in Ramona for, I think, a week, maybe 2 weeks. But he got good quality training, kind of the same boat where like that first competition was like, okay, like I'm kind of just finding my feet. Like I'm understanding like what it is to throw, in this conditions. And, he stayed out there and continued to get good quality throws in. And now he has a new national record.
Yeah. I mean, congrats, man. Honestly. And you're probably not watching too many videos in English, but if you are watching the Throws University channel, Sam and I, if we have the opportunity to go out and cover the World Championships in Tokyo, we'd love to meet up and see what you got going on and how your training's going, because you don't hear too much about Japanese athletes. Obviously we know about Haruka and of course the hammer legend Koji Murafushi, but beyond that, it's like very cool when we get to see Japanese throwers do well.
Absolutely.
And we're actually going to head over to Iowa for the Drake Relays as not really a garage strength thrower, but we like to consider him a garage strength thrower, like an honorary kind of garage strength thrower, because anytime we're at a competition, we're going to hang out with this guy all the time. Great dude, one of the nicest people I ever met. And whenever he's in the area in Pennsylvania, we'll come over and train at garage strength. And that's Rudy Winkler. Rudy Winkler. He's the American record holder in the hammer, threw over 82 meters. a few years ago, and he's backing it up to potentially have another season similar to that one. Oh, goes to the Drake Relays, opens up at 81.08, huge 81-meter throw as an opener. Honestly, like, this is just awesome to see Rudy in this kind of shape again, and it has me thinking, like, oh man, one, what could he do to potentially improve the American record? But two, are we finally going to see this kind of Rudy in shape at the World Championships to finally do some damage in the final?
Yeah.
What are you seeing on this throw, and what do you think this means for Rudy right now?
Well, remember the indoors, we talked to all the hammer throwers, and they were talking about, all right, now the 84 is, like, Ethan did it, like, it's very doable. Let's chase that.
Yeah.
Dude, opening up at 81, you said 08?
Yep.
Like, that's really good.
It's very good.
That's very, very good.
That would be a good mark if someone like Yuri Sadiq opened his season with that at the peak of his career.
Yeah, dude. So, like, for him to do that this early, it's like, okay, like, clearly things are clicking. You know, his training camps, like, all of his training, like, is going really, really well. He's in really good shape. So it's like, dude, let's keep the pedal on the metal. Let's just keep going. Let's keep building, you know, as best as possible. And honestly, I'm more convinced now with what they all said during the indoor season. Like, we're gonna push. Like, American Hammer is gonna be, like, even that much more special. So, like, with him opening up like this, I definitely think, like, yo, they're gonna make a statement.
Well, let's look at women's hammer, for example. Like, you know, the depth was already kind of there as Deanna broke through, won the World Championships in 2019, and then following Deanna, then we had Brooke come out. And then she won a world title. Janae followed suit. And then what did that push Canada to do? Cameron Rogers comes up. And then Cameron Rogers was the world title and Olympic title. And now from Ramona, now we have Rachel Richardson entering the conversation. And it's going to be the same for the men's hammer.
Can't forget about Annette.
We can't oh my gosh, I almost forgot about Annette. Annette, you know, got silver at the freaking Olympics. So when you start seeing one person in your region throw far, it really does open up the floodgates that you can throw far too. Like, hammer is no longer the European throwing event where all former Eastern Bloc countries are the ones that dominate. Like, it is now turned to such a global event that even to the point where the West is now starting to dominate Europe. And it's a very cool tide shift in the performances. But one thing I kind of want to bring up, what you were saying real quick about indoor nationals, you interviewed Rudy, and basically he just kind of said, like, you were asked, like, how do you feel about today? He's like, it's the weight. It was like he really didn't care, because this is what his focus is on. If you're a hammer thrower, it's like, yes, the weight can be fun to throw, but, like, this is what you're trying to do. I think the one thing I want to ask you before we move on is, what do you think a young hammer thrower can pull away from watching a video like this? What is he doing well that you think other throwers can learn from?
He's long, he's relaxed, he's handsome, he looks good with the new kit. I love the kit.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, like, he works the ball super long. You know, he's working it left, and he really attacks turns 3 and 4. So I think as a hammer thrower, like, you know, everything that he does is very textbook. And if you have the privilege to watch Rudy throw in person, it's gonna blow your mind. I remember a few years ago I got to watch Rudy throw at 12th Rock, and I was, like, dumbfounded. I've never seen someone move a hammer that fast, but still, like, execute technique at a very high precision. It was beautiful. Like, that's all I could say. But, like, if you are a young thrower, like, this is definitely a guy, like, to watch and emulate your throw, you know, on.
Yeah, watch Rudy, and if you ever see Rudy, go say hi to him. He's such a great guy. And to follow that up, we also have the Olympic and world champion opening up her season at the Mount Sac Relays. 78-14. Gosh dang, Cameron, like, ease up a bit, man. But 78 meters for your opener, like, man, she's just picking up where she left off in, August last year. That's all she's doing.
Yeah.
So what do you see on this throw? But also just, like, how do you think is going to show for her rest of the season as she leads into Tokyo? I guess my question is, with where Cameron is right now in her career, do you think she should do more meets or less meets?
That's a good question. I don't think she needs more meets.
But from like, I think where I was going with that is kind of we were talking about like the whole money discussion because we talk about that with a lot of our professional friends.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is the year where it's like chase the bag and just travel all over the world and get as many meets as possible and make money? Or do you like, nah, let's push it and really try to like throw over 80 kind of thing?
That's a good question. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she was just picked up by, I want to say Nike. It was definitely a big brand. So, like, I definitely think she has some.
I think this isn't the Adidas kit.
Is
No,
it?
this is the Nike kit because I
Yeah.
think Yaime was in the Adidas kit and that's red.
Yeah. So, I think she has some.
Yes, because this is the same kit that Krauser wore because this signifies you're a world or Olympic champion.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think she has some backing now, you
Yeah.
know, which is definitely good for the sport, especially, you know, an athlete like Cameron who is very dominant and will probably stay very dominant. But I definitely think she has some backing, so I don't know if it's necessarily like we have to go chase the bag.
Yeah.
I think honestly, like, why not push, you know, that 80 mark? Like you're almost there. Like
Well, that's the thing is like between her, Brooke, Janae, now Rachel,
Annette.
like Annette, it's like 82.98 is the world record. And we have all these women that are all throwing in excess of 77, 78 meters. And we even have the one girl from Finland that we talk about who threw 77 meters, which I believe was a World U23 record.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's a lot of talent in the women's hammer right now that are going to be pressuring that world record soon. And I think it's going to be all of them getting better at the same time. That's going to have at least one or two of them break through.
Yeah.
But what do you see on her technique here with the hammer that you think is good key points that might be slightly different than Rudy that people can take away?
Yeah, no, I think Cameron does a really, really good job of staying low. Like, she stays low, her center of gravity is lower, so that allows her to stay grounded, and then she just continues to work the ball left. Like, a lot of these hammer throwers you're going to see, like, they're long, they're relaxed, they work the ball left. But what I really like about Cameron is like, her center of gravity is that much lower, so she's able to attack, you know, each turn just a little more aggressively, and, like, you know, she is another one where, like, you can really see her acceleration just get better on each turn. And I really think that is because, you know, her center of gravity is just a little bit lower. So, you know, I think you can learn anything and everything from all of these athletes. You know, I think both men and women can learn from either or.
Yeah.
I know me personally, like, I love watching women's discus, you know, to pick up on things, even though women's and men's discus is a little different. But I do like watching both because, like, I can see it from both perspectives, and I feel like sometimes women do certain things a little bit better than guys. So I feel like, you know, either or, you're gonna learn something, you know, really great.
I'm trying to remember who I was talking to. I think it was at Ramona, but they basically like compared to like Alekna, the way he throws is like, oh, well, he catches the discus like a woman. Because women are usually more mobile than men in their shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of like, he was basically telling me like Alekna was so hyper mobile that he's the only male discus thrower competing at that level who can catch a discus as deep as like someone like Yaime or Sandra.
Yeah. You know, working through their high point and then getting down to their power position, like, he catches it almost at like between like 10 and 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking at a clock, and I don't know any other guy who can catch it like that. And obviously he just works it around into the finish. So yeah, no, he's
So this is our basically our, you know, our PSA was saying like, if you're a dude, watch women throwers. If you're a woman, watch dude throwers. There's so many different things you can pick up between different movements that are still going to apply to your skill set, not just what their gender is.
Yeah,
so.
it's core principles.
Yes.
You know, everyone has their style, but core principles are the same for both genders.
And we're gonna stick with the women's hammer throw as Brooke Anderson goes 75-28 as for her opener. That's a solid mark, you know, for Brooke. You know, I know it's been a struggle for her since you know, the Olympic trials. She did not have the meet that she wanted. And, I know it's just been kind of difficult for her since then, but it's good to see her bounce back, open up with a really, really good mark, 75. Like, when you think about a 75-meter throw, 75, like a mark like this would have got bronze at Paris.
Yeah.
So it's like these are still, like, it might not be 78 meters like we saw with Cameron or Rachel, but, like, these are marks that are still highly competitive. And it's like when you, again, think about the length of the season, perfect throw to build off of as an opener. What do you think on this throw?
Absolutely. I think, once again, it's going to be very similar because, like, all of these athletes do, what it takes, like the core concepts to throw far. Brooke, on her first turn is a little more flat compared to some of the others, but really accelerates 2, 3, 4, and then just puts everything into the finish. As you can see with her recovery, she puts her whole body into it and she's putting everything into it. So, like, for her to open up at 75, it's really good. It's telling her, like, she's in pretty good shape. And I know that she, amongst the other American women on the hammer side are really going to start pushing, far distances.
Yeah, it's very cool because when you compare it to her, Deanna, Cameron, it's like these are the last few world champions that, like, that are going to be contending in Tokyo. So it's like it's going to be a battle, and the depth chart of the women's hammer right now is incredible. And to continue with the depth chart, we're going to be going into the women's javelin briefly, as we actually discussed her on the first throw show, the outdoor season. Adriana Velago, she went big at the European Winter Throwing Cup. Well, she went big again, 67-22 for a new Serbian national record. Unfortunately, we don't have any video of it for us to critique, but wanted to at least cover that this is a huge mark. It's the current world lead. And it's like Adriana's really putting herself in the conversation for medal contender, potentially world championship contender come Tokyo.
Yeah, dude, she's doubling it down.
Yeah.
She threw 67 earlier and she did it again, and it's like good. Obviously it's a very long season, so I'm, hoping that she can stay healthy, stay prepared, and, be ready for, a world championship. But for right now, dude, she's on fire.
Yeah, looking really good, Adriana. And then to move on, we're also going to get into the high school ranks as, dude, boys discus. The depth that I'm seeing is like, I remember like when we were in high school, I always feel old for saying stuff like that, but it's the truth. Like you would see like one or two guys throw 200 feet a year.
Mm-hmm.
We have two active competitors right now throwing in excess of 215, like 66 meters. So this is Simon Rosselli, who's a junior.
Mm-hmm.
Now he threw at Arcadia, so it's like Arcadia is known for getting some really big throws, but this is the number 7 all-time high school mark. This is actually right around the same distance. I'm not sure if it's slightly further or slightly less than our buddy Mattis's high school throw, but like, what do you think of multiple kids throwing over 215, and what do you think of a throw like this going 218?
Yeah, dude, I've been saying it, and I'll continue to say it. Like, the evolution of throws is significantly better now than, what it was when we were in high school. It's crazy to say, we're the old heads now, we're the unks, but,
yeah.
Dude, like...
I had someone call me that a few weeks ago. I'm still kind of reeling from it.
It's whatever. It is what it is. I think it's funny, but it's just like... Dude, like, the evolution of throws is getting significantly better, and, you're getting athletes, like, dude, Simon's movement is super clean.
Yeah.
Like, I would honestly think this kid's training age is, like, super high. Like, I have no clue personally, but the way that he moves makes me think that, like, he's been throwing for a while, and, like, dude, like, it clearly shows, like, 218. Yeah. That is far. Bro, like, that is so far.
One thing I'll also say is when I'm seeing from a lot of these, like, is you can tell that the throwers that are throwing really far in discus right now, they are discus athletes.
Yes.
Like, we're going to see this in one of the videos coming up, but it's like, this isn't a shot putter who throws discus.
No.
These are very much like, you can tell by the way that the way their physiques are, the way they move. It's like, this person has been training for a year to throw discus, And one thing I'll kind of add on top is like, the athlete that kind of really stood out to me when they were younger, that I was like, oh shoot, like discus throwing is actually evolving, was ironically enough Connor Bell. Because Connor, I think, threw like 63 meters with a 2K at like 18 years old or something like that, or 17. Like, he was really young.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, he moved so grounded. like these two guys, because the other guy who threw really far was Atwood, and I'm just like looking at like these high school kids, like they're doing things that we didn't understand to do like 10 years ago in the circle is like the crazy part to me.
Yeah.
Like great throwing, but also I think one thing I'll add before we move on, he's only a junior. How much further can he go? The official high school national records, I think 236 by Mason Finley. And one thing I also like to add is a friend of the show and Garage Strength, Nick Arrhenius, who's the coach at BYU. He had the old high school national record, which he did set at Arcadia. And it was like a 15 to 20 foot PR because there was like massive winds. But I think it's just cool to think about like how much further can he go as a senior?
Dude, with the movement that he has right now and give him another year, I think he could be at or challenge that record. Like I think
so too.
Dude, like I'm actually jealous of his movement. Like I wish I could do that personally. Like that dude is smooth.
Yeah, no, very, very good throw, Simon. We look forward to see what you got in the future. And kind of what I was like alluding to is, and I don't know why, but it's been hard for me to find videos of him competing this year. But Jackson Cantwell sets a new personal best, just slightly over his old personal best of 206 in the discus. I think he's gone 72, 73 in the shot, maybe 74. But I haven't found video of that yet. But not really the best angle to review his throws. But I think the very important thing to understand is like Jackson's goals are not going to be the same as most high school throwers.
Yeah.
Like he wants to throw far, obviously. He's an athlete. He's a competitor. But if you pay attention to his Instagram, you'll very much understand that his goals are in football. Mm-hmm. But I still want to talk about him because it's worth discussing like how multi-talented you can be as an athlete and to be someone who is probably going to throw 210 in discus, someone who can throw 75 feet in shot put, but also he is the number one recruit in all of high school football as a lineman.
Yes.
So I know there's not too much to review technique-wise here, but I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you think, based on what Jackson has done, do you think he's going to go that much farther this junior season, knowing that's probably his last?
I'd hope.
Yeah, I hope too.
I'd hope. I think this is something that I'm starting to realize now through coaching at Garage Strength, but it's like when you have a shot putter, like I consider Jackson like a shot putter. Like
I do too.
Pure shot putter.
Yeah.
But like as you continue to develop and they get good reps, you know, with shot put, like the commonalities with discus, like they're, for the most part, not everyone, but for the most part, like they should translate over to the discus. So like, you know, I know he's been doing a lot of great things in the shot. So it's like good to see that, you know, a lot of that is translating into the disc. You know, also being as tall as he is definitely helps. But it's like, dude, like I'm sure obviously we can't really see from this angle, but I'm sure he's hitting pretty good positions to put himself, you know, in a position to throw this far. And it's like one of those things, like I don't know how much he trains discus, but I'm sure like as the season progresses, you know, with the few weeks that we have, he might throw even further.
I want to do like a slight little tangent based off what you just said, because I think this is worth discussing, and I haven't actually had this conversation before. But on Throw Big Throw Far podcast, they were talking with Veston. And Veston Hessinson, who, if you guys don't know, he coached Daniel Stahl, coached Gerd Cantor to Olympic titles. He's basically considered like the greatest discus coach of all time. I think a lot of people like to consider that. And he has the opinion that more discus throwers as they're developing should be glide shot putters. Now, the theory that Dane Miller of Garage Strength and Throws You has always had is like have them both spin because they're similar enough movements and you can get any shot putter throw at least okay distances in the discus. Mm-hmm. As someone who might be wanting to develop a thrower purely into a discus thrower, they know they want to be a discus thrower. They're not looking to throw shot put. Like someone like Sam, even in high school, was never prioritized as shot put. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's better for a discus primary thrower as they're developing to be a glider?
That's a good question. I think through my experience, I think where I'm at currently right now with my coaching, I would say spin for both.
Yeah.
Especially because the demographic that I'm working with is like the high school kids. So it's like, okay, if I can get a average athlete, like a beginner to average athlete to spin for a year, I know come that spring, like they're going to do really, really well. Like I have a couple athletes who threw, no lie, under 50. Like I had one thrower, his best indoors this season was 43 feet, and he just threw 55. And that's because we've been working on the spin, for a long period of time.
Yeah.
He's not a discus thrower, but he's been throwing discus really, really well.
Right.
We've had a couple athletes on site who are primary shot throwers who throw the discus well because we've been focusing on the technique. Now, in my personal experience, the one glider that we do have, yes, he can smack a throw, but his movement isn't as consistent because we haven't had enough time focusing on the full spin. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it just depends on the environment that you're in and like how much time you can put into developing both techniques if you want to do the glide, and spin the discus, or if you want to just spin year round. Like they're going to get more reps with the spin, as a whole.
Basically, you're using the indoor season to offset that time where they wouldn't be throwing discus, so they can at least get some rotational movement in.
Yes.
And I think the other aspect you have to consider, I think Veston was even aware of this in the podcast, you're also training athletes that have goals of going to college. And the reality of the college recruiting system is you're more valuable if you can do 2 events than if you can do 1.
Mm-hmm. And I think the system now, like a lot of college coaches don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like especially with all the different events. So if you have an athlete who can spin in both, like it's so much easier.
Yep. Because that's similar movement pattern,
yep.
less. And also, I don't think college coaches like to coach the glide, to be honest.
Yeah. Like
that's more speculative on my part, though.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we're leaning more towards that way.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely, coaches who will, still let their athletes glide. Like, we have CJ Licata still gliding at a very high level. I just feel like, in the grand scheme of like points and like championships, like if you can have an athlete just spin year round, like they're going to get more reps and they'll be in a better position.
Yeah. The less variables you can cut out, the better for a college coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk your way through it because I think it's just an interesting conversation that honestly I'd probably want to go into deeper because I think it's not as cut and dry as maybe we'd like to make it seem sometimes. So we're going to continue with high school throws as a new person has entered the 70-foot club in Adam Carter. He's commit to Texas State. We've actually watched him take a few throws on previous throw shows, throwing over 68 feet. He won the Texas Relays. Throwing over 70 feet, man, like we were talking about this guy's technique. He has a really, really good finish. I love the way this guy moves at the front. What do you think of Adam Carter's throw? And honestly, like the way he throws, I think I'll just say this. I think it's going to translate well to the 16-pound pretty early on in his career. What are your takes on the way he moves and what do you think his college career is going to turn into?
Yeah, no, he moves well. I think you asked me, like, will this kid hit 70? And I'm pretty sure I was like, yeah. I think with his movement, like, for sure. So, like, obviously, shout out to Adam, like, great efforts. Like, you broke that 70-meter, barrier.
Foot.
70 foot, sorry, not meter. That'd be crazy. That 70-foot barrier. And like his movement is super smooth. I do think he gets a little bit wider here, which is good.
Yeah.
I would like to see just a little more knee up, toe up with the sweep, but hey, dude, he's making it work. Like that's like a style thing, you know what I mean? Like his core concepts are there, his core principles are there. So, dude, he throws far. What I have to say doesn't really matter.
I wish more people on the internet took that mindset. Yeah, dude, honestly, great work. I think you could go even further. You have another month of the high school season, probably another, few more weeks after that if you decide to go the post high school route at nationals and stuff. But hey, man, good luck to you. I think you could throw a couple feet further, to be honest.
Absolutely, good luck.
And we're going to take it back to the professional level as we go to this past weekend's results at our Garage Strength home meet, as we had the shot putters throw. Sam Weeks also threw. But we'll focus on the shot put for right now. The whole crew, I thought, performed pretty well considering the conditions. It was pretty rainy outside. But most everyone threw about over 19 meters. So Luke was happy with what he threw. Taman had a really good opener of 2032 coming off his injury from indoors. So that was really good for Taman. I know he probably wanted a little more, but I think considering that injury, it's really good. And then Garage Strength new thrower, who you guys may not have seen yet much of, is Jefta Vogel out of Switzerland. He came out for a few-week training camp, threw a new personal best of 1915. His previous personal best was 1825 from a couple years ago. So to set a near meter personal best in the rain, like, okay, Jefta, you've leveled up. Like, you're a different thrower now, which is exciting to see because I know he was trying to qualify for World University Games, and that should get him into that competition. But Eric Favors also threw well. He's coming off some pec issues, throwing 1999. Honestly, solid meet overall. You and I both worked this competition. What did you guys think of the performances?
Yeah, dude, I think this was a lot of their openers.
Yep.
So I think, for it to be the openers and for it to be wet and raining, like it was raining.
Yeah.
It was drizzling.
No, it was raining. My cameras felt it.
It was wet.
It was very wet.
It was wet. I mean, so definitely for the conditions, like I think all of this is great. Now, what would they have done if, the circle was dry and it wasn't raining, drizzling? Probably, a little bit better. But for what it is, like they handled the conditions, they controlled what they could control, and they went out there and they all competed really, really well. And it's like, all right, good. Like, if you can throw well in poor conditions, you'll throw, even better with better conditions. So I think this was a really good opener for them all. And, I'm very excited to see what they do.
Yeah, the next stop's going to be Princeton this weekend. So keep an eye out for this competition. This will probably be out on the YouTube channel next week. And then the week following that, I'm hoping to get out the Princeton competition, which you'll be competing in this weekend.
Correct.
So good luck to you on that, Sam. One thing I'll also kind of mention is we don't have video of this, but Eric actually had a nasty spill on one of these throws. And that's where rain people sometimes forget about is like when you slip and you have a fall, it's very hard to mentally recover from that and be willing to attack the ball as much as you need to.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to do a shout out for Eric, just being willing to bounce back from pretty nasty spill that he had in this comp.
Yeah. Shout out Eric. He definitely put it together. He was very consistent with, his series. He did have that slip, which, I was like, yeah. I was super nervous just looking at it, but he didn't let that phase him, and he still went out there and he threw really well. So, big shouts to Eric.
Another garage strength thrower opened up his season as Alex Rose goes 62-57. I believe this was at Grand Valley State. So 62 is a bit more of a modest effort out of Alex from what we've seen, but what you may not know about Alex is at the tail end of last year, he had pretty invasive knee surgery, and he really hasn't been able to train that much the last, almost 6 months now.
Yeah. So
the fact that he went 62, you can look at his captions. Like I believe he also just welcomed a new child into the world. So it's just a lot of life things, affected Alex this offseason. But I think, he has a really good mindset about it. It's like, he's really more looking at it like he had his massive throw last year, throwing 71-48. So realistically, like, I don't have no doubts that Alex is going to qualify for another world championship.
Yeah.
He just knows how to throw far. And even with him dealing with all that, to have 62-57 as his opener, that's really freaking solid. He's moving pretty solid here. What's your take on Alex's situation, but also his opener?
Yeah, dude, like for Alex to come back after having knee surgery and throwing 62, like that's huge. Like, with any surgery, like that area is definitely affected. So like, I'm sure, he was probably on some crutches for a little bit. So like, his training process or getting back into training was definitely a lot different than, years prior. So I'm sure like getting back into it was definitely difficult, and he had some other life things like, bringing in another child, adding more to the roles family, the Rose clan. So there was definitely a lot of different things going on, but for him to kind of like find time to get, training in and do what he can and to open up, at 62, like that's good. You know what I mean? Like that's really, really good. And I think one thing, I think Alex posted this on the story, his space traveler, I guess he threw it left sector.
Yeah, it was lost in the pond.
Yeah, it was lost in the pond, and the athletes at what school was this?
I think it's Grand Valley.
Grand Valley. Yeah, they went and they jumped in the pond to go find it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like a cool little side story. I know that's not really much about this, but I feel like that's super cool. Like a lot of people respect Alex, and I feel like with just something as small as that, it's like, yo, like please, like keep throwing, keep doing stuff. Like people are willing to jump in a pond for you. Like I feel like that's like a really cool thing, and I hope like Alex, gets back into shape like soon. Not like soon, but like I know he will, but just like sooner than later, and just continues to drop far tosses.
Well, the nice thing about what we constantly talk about with this season, time is on Alex's side.
100%.
Which is always a good thing. So we'll move on to probably the biggest news of the last few weeks since Ramona. But before we actually get into that specific competition, let's go over the results of what that competition was. So we're going to go into and discuss the World Shot Put Series because we had a lot of opinions going on before that regarding what we thought it might be and what it actually became. Mm-hmm. So Roger Steen wins the Drake Relays, throws 21.62. Very similar to what he threw at the World Indoors to get a silver medal. He performed really well here, came back on his last round, which he seems to be making a habit of. Really happy for Roger because this is a big meet to win. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, he beat Tripp again, he beat Peyton Otterdahl. Like, there's a really stacked field here. I don't think Krauser competed, but in the next video, we actually have, like, Krauser's, like, mic'd up, and he's commenting on the whole meet. But there is something I kind of want to discuss in regards to the performances at this meet, but really only once we get to World Shot Put Series. But standing alone, forgetting the World Shot Put Series is there, what do you think of this performance by Roger?
Dude, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I believe he was in 5th before the 6th round.
That's the exact same thing that happened at World Indoors then. That's crazy.
I believe he was in 5th and won it on his last toss. Yeah. Dude, like, that's a huge, huge feat. Yeah. Because, like, he's competing against some of the best in the world. Right. Like, we all know, like, Americans are stacked. Like, USA is stacked in the shot. And to be in 5th, place and to win it, like, that's saying something. That's making a statement. Like, obviously, we know, like, him and Tripp have made a lot of statements during this indoor season, but, like, it's outdoor now.
Yeah.
And Roger is on fire.
It almost feels like there's starting to be, like, a change of the guard a little bit. But the weird thing is like, usually you'd see this big shift of, like, 2 to 3 athletes, like, take over the work of the previous generation of throwers. The difference is they're just more adding to the group that was already there, mm-hmm. which is like funny to me because it's like instead of changing the guard, it's just there's just like more people.
Yeah, we're just adding more.
Now it's just like literally 6 to 7 guys could win any day, yes. which is the craziest part.
Yes.
So the meet, of course, that I was referencing is Ryan Krauser's World Shot Put Series. He debuted it last week. A few days prior to the competition we just witnessed. This is not an official meet. It's not sanctioned by World Athletics. No one actually measures any throws in this competition. Your only goal is get that ball over that line. You have 2 attempts, and can you get it over the line more often in less attempts than your competitor? Exactly like high jump, exactly like pole vault. And they probably put on the most entertaining shot put competition of all time.
Absolutely.
So I had a lot of criticism going into this event because at the time there was no planning on streaming it. I wasn't sure where to watch it. They end up giving a lot of stream keys to various YouTube channels that covers track and field. to stream this event. I watched this on the Total Running Productions YouTube channel, so shout out to Andrew and his team. But the format really led to some unexpected results. So right now we're watching the tail end of the competition, in which Roger Steen and Trip Pippery, who both have personal bests of 71 and low 72 feet, never thrown 22 meters, both had throws in excess of the 73-foot line in this competition, meaning that they hit massive personal bests in this competition. But the caveat being, it's like they never happened and they're not going to be on the boards forever existing, because that's not what the format of this competition was. Mm-hmm. And one thing I kind of want to do is reference back to the Drake competition. Is it reasonable to have a competition like this prior to a real competition? Because in my mind, this probably gassed out a lot of athletes.
Yeah. Obviously between this competition and, Drake Relays, they had a couple days, but, being a spectator, they took a lot of tosses.
Yes.
They took a lot, and, you're throwing near maximal attempts, back to back to back to back to back. That definitely does take out a lot of energy, from these athletes. So, yes, both Trip and Roger have thrown, their furthest distance in this competition, but it doesn't really amount to anything outside of knowing that you can do it.
Yeah.
But it's I do think it kind of affects them, but for, Drake Relays, but as a fan, I felt like this competition,
we just witnessed, that's the greatest throw in Trip's life.
Yes. Dude, this was the most entertaining shot competition that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I didn't quite know what this was going to be as we were leading into the competition, but watching it, I was like, wow, this is actually amazing. This is so much fun. The crowd was into it. I feel like last year when they had the men's women tag team exhibition, I felt like the energy was live there, but I feel like this kind of overshadowed, not overshadowed, but it took over that.
Yeah.
I felt like this was awesome. It was great. It was fun. I'm not even there and I was enjoying it. I think this was great. But did this take away from Drake? Maybe a little bit.
I think it's got to be a weird feeling being an athlete, knowing that you just hit a massive personal best in what was essentially a massive competition, and just knowing that it's one, you don't even know what the distance is. Mm-hmm. Two, it's it's just a lot of unknowns. And this is me being hypercritical of it. I want to say that I loved it. Yeah. I thought the presentation was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. If there's one criticism I had in regards to the presentation, is I wish there were just some graphics to monitor who was in the lead, so it's easier to keep track of as a fan watching from home. But beyond that, it was Krauser did a great job. The crowd was really lively. One thing I'll give a lot of credit to the throwers for is they really embraced that it was meant to be a spectacle. Mm-hmm. And maybe because they didn't take it maybe as seriously, and they just want to focus on the fun aspect, maybe that led to some of those big performances. Mm-hmm. But I think what's also important to recognize is the guys that went 1-2 in the World Shot Put Series are the same guys that went 1-2 at Drake. Mm-hmm. So it's the results, it was basically you had to show up. If you were in shape, you were going to throw well.
Yeah.
So it really just kind of, cemented, dude, Roger and Trip are at a whole new level than they were prior. Their competitive base is so much better than it used to be. And that's where it's as we look towards nationals in a few months, the competitors are going to have to watch out, because Trip and Roger are not playing. They are here to make teams, and they are going to throw whatever they need to throw in order to do it.
Yeah.
But I think one thing I'll ask you, Sam, is do you think this is something that should be repeatable? I guess where I'm going with this is watching this. Is this something that we should only do at big meets, or do you think that there should be specific events around it, or should there be real competitions associated with it? Could this live on its own as its own thing?
We'll have to find out.
Yeah. I think we're still in the early stages of figuring out
out.
what this is going to turn into. But in terms of a first outing, like one thing I'll say is it was really interesting to watch the chat for these streams, because a lot of them, I specifically watched on the Total Running page because a lot of his fans are distance runners and sprinters.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to see non-throwers talk about shot putting and basically say like, oh, this is so fun to watch. Like, it was easy for them to get and they didn't have to think about like the actual distance. They just had to see the ball go over the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had to take a step back and be like, I was somewhat not sure if this would work as a format until I remembered anytime I'd watch a teammate or someone do high jump or javelin, pole vault,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see someone clear the bar, you don't have to know anything about that person. You don't have to know anything about the history of the sport. You don't have to know anything outside of, oh, they got over the bar. That was good for them. And you can clap.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the nice thing about this event is literally it's like you either get over the line or you don't. If you get over the line, people clap. If you don't get over the line, aw.
Yeah.
And because it's so simple, because especially with throwing, you've seen this so many times. Someone will have a throw that's relatively good compared to the rest of their competition, but because it's not good by their standards, they'll hit a throw, it goes way farther than everyone else, and then complain and then bitch and moan after and then step over the toe board. And then the audience is like, why isn't he happy? Why aren't they happy? That was such a good throw.
Mm-hmm.
But now this format forces you to be like, it doesn't matter what the distance is. It doesn't matter what is relative to your best. Did you move on to the next stage of throwing because you got over the line?
Yeah. And I definitely think that kind of just fed into the crowd's, like, you know, cheers and whatnot. And just, you know, like the throwers were feeding off the crowd. The crowd was feeding off the throws, like the performances. And it was just like a good relationship between, you know, athlete and spectator. And I just felt like it just brought the energy. And, you know, I felt like it definitely helped, you know, Trip, Roger, and everyone who competed to kind of push, you know, a little bit more. And, you know, I thought it was fun, especially like the challenge flags, you know, like they were very animated with how they threw their flags. Like it was just a great competition overall.
Yeah, one thing I even wanted to bring up is, and we'll see this soon, is the fact that they had a championship belt for Roger. I thought that was cool. You know, like I said, I've always said I'm a nerdy wrestling fan, so it's like, I've always thought it would be cool to add titles and like, especially because like shot putters are like really the super heavyweights of, you know, the track world. Like that's where it's cool to see, you know, something you take in from like traditional fighting or, you know, pro wrestling. And it's just, it just kind of adds to the spectacle of it because you get it. It's just cool to see. It's a good visual. Belt looks good on him, Roger. I think the World Shot Put Series is a great step forward for the sport. I'm excited to see more. I DM'd Ryan Krauser about it, saying how much we enjoyed it. So, you know, I look forward to more. I hope you guys keep doing it. I hope you keep doing it and stick with it, Krauser, because I think this is a good step forward. And I think it's going to open up the conversation to a lot of new innovative ideas for the sport moving forward.
Absolutely.
And if you want to push your results to the absolute best that you can be, make sure you head over to throwsuniversity.com. We have books, we have programs, we have courses all there to make you a better thrower, but also a better coach, like our perfect throws season coaching course. You can check that out at the link down below, or you can get elite level throws training from my boy, Coach Sam Weeks here. He is a head throws coach at youth development at Throws University, but also he writes all the custom programming for all of our top throwers. So many state champions, so many personal bests in the year 2025. If you want to become a better thrower, make sure you head over to throwsuniversity.com, train with Sam Weeks, check out those books. We also have other various programs that you can choose from so you can drop some bombs. Peace.